If you've never been to Minas Gerais, let me bring a little piece of it to your kitchen today. Picture a simple home, late afternoon light coming through the window, and that calm, familiar sound of food starting to cook on the stove. That's the feeling behind frango com quiabo, one of the most beloved comfort dishes in Brazil, especially in Minas. Honest ingredients, patient heat, and a flavor that doesn't need anything fancy to be memorable. Here's what I like about this recipe: it's straightforward. No secret techniques, no complicated steps that make you nervous. The magic is in the basics done well. We're working with 1 kilogram of chicken pieces, the kind that turn tender and juicy when they simmer, and we're seasoning them the traditional way: garlic, onion, annatto powder, salt, and black pepper. Annatto, or colorau, is what gives that warm, golden color that looks like Sunday lunch even on a regular weekday. It's not about heat, it's about comfort. As the chicken hits the pan, you'll hear that first sizzle, and that's where the flavor starts building. I'm going to show you how to brown it properly, because this isn't a dish you rush. You want the outside sealed and deeply flavorful, so the sauce later tastes like it's been cooking all day, even when it hasn't. And then there's okra, the part that makes some people pause. Maybe you love it, maybe you've had a version that turned too slippery and you never tried again. Stay with me, because we're going to handle the okra in a way that keeps the stew clean, silky, and appetizing. We'll cook 300 grams of okra separately first, just enough to calm down that slime before it ever meets the chicken. If you're enjoying this kind of clear, traditional cooking, take a second to like the video. It really helps more people find these Brazilian recipes. And tell me, have you ever cooked okra before, or is today your first time giving it a chance? Now, let's step up to the counter and start seasoning the chicken, because once that aroma hits the pan, the whole kitchen changes. Now that everything is on the counter, let's build flavor the Minas way: simple, steady, and done with care. I'm starting with about 1 kilo of chicken pieces. Nothing fancy, just the kind you'd actually cook at home. Into the bowl goes the garlic first, because that's where the aroma starts. Then onion, a good pinch of salt, black pepper, and that warm touch of colorau that gives the chicken a gentle golden red hue. As I mix, I'm not rushing. I want every piece coated, like you're wrapping the chicken in seasoning instead of just sprinkling it on top. While you're here with me, if this kind of straightforward Brazilian cooking feels good to watch, tap like so I know to bring more classics like this. And tell me, do you prefer chicken on the bone for stews, or do you go for boneless because it's easier? Pan on the heat, a drizzle of oil, and we let it get properly hot. When the chicken hits the surface, listen for that first sizzle. This is where the dish starts telling you it's going to be good. I lay the pieces in without crowding. If the pan is packed, the chicken steams and you lose the deep, savory browning that makes frango com quiabo taste like Sunday lunch. I leave it alone for a moment, then turn each piece when it's ready, not when I'm impatient. You're looking for color along the edges, a little caramelization, and those brown bits forming on the bottom of the pan, because that's pure flavor we're going to lift later. The kitchen smell changes as it goes. The garlic softens, the onion sweetens, and the annatto warms everything up. It's comforting, not loud. When the chicken is sealed and glossy, I lower the heat just a touch, and I start thinking about the step that makes or breaks this recipe: the okra. If you've had okra that turned the whole dish sticky, you already know why we don't throw it in raw and hope for the best. In the next part, I'll show you exactly how I cook about 300 grams of okra separately first, so it stays tender and clean in the final stew. And if you like this kind of practical detail, subscribe, because that's what we do here. Now that the chicken has had a few minutes to soak up that garlic, onion, colorau, salt, and black pepper, let's bring the pan to life. Medium-high heat, a wide pot, and just a thin layer of oil on the bottom. When the oil starts to shimmer, the first pieces go in and you'll hear that immediate sizzle. That sound is important. It means we're sealing the surface, building color, and starting the flavor foundation that makes this dish feel like home. Spread the chicken out and resist the urge to stir too soon. Give it time to brown properly. You'll see the edges turning a deep golden red from the annatto, and you'll smell the toasted garlic mixing with the chicken juices. When you flip each piece, you're looking for real color, not pale. If the pot feels crowded, do it in batches. It's not about speed, it's about getting that rich base without steaming the meat. While the chicken is browning, let's talk about the part that makes everyone either nervous or curious: okra. Okra is wonderful, but it needs respect. If you throw it straight into the stew, it can release that slippery texture too quickly and take over the whole pot. So we treat it separately first, and this one step changes everything. Rinse the okra, dry it well, then slice it into rounds, not too thin. Moisture is what encourages slime, so the drier it is, the better. In a separate skillet, heat a little oil and add the okra in a single layer. No water, no lid. Just let it cook. At first it looks bright and fresh, then it starts to soften, and you'll notice it becomes less glossy as it sautés. Stir occasionally, not constantly, and let the heat do its job. The aroma turns slightly grassy and nutty, and the okra starts to look clean, almost set, instead of wet. If you're enjoying this calm, traditional way of cooking, take a second to like the video. And tell me, have you ever cooked okra before, or is this your first time trying it without the slime? Back at the pot, the chicken pieces are now browned and fragrant, with those tasty bits stuck to the bottom. That's pure flavor. In the next step, we'll build the broth right on top of that and bring the chicken and okra together so it simmers into that Minas Gerais comfort we're chasing. If you want to follow the whole process, subscribe and stay with me, because now it gets even more satisfying. Once the chicken has taken on that deep, golden color, you'll notice how the kitchen starts to smell like a real home-cooked lunch. That browning isn't just for looks. It's where the flavor gets sealed in, and it's what gives the sauce that Minas-style depth later on. If the pan starts to get a little dark on the bottom, that's normal. Just lower the heat and let the chicken do its thing, turning the pieces calmly, without rushing. You want the outside to look confident, not burned. Now, while the chicken rests for a moment, let's talk about the step that changes everything, the okra. Okra can be intimidating because of that natural slime, but it's completely manageable when you treat it with respect. I like to wash it, dry it really well, and trim the ends. Moisture is what makes it release more of that slippery texture, so take an extra minute here. Then in a separate pan, a little oil, medium-high heat, and the okra goes in. Leave it alone at first. Don't stir right away. Let it get contact with the heat so it can lightly sear. As it cooks, you'll hear a gentle sizzle and see it turn brighter, then slightly golden at the edges. Stir occasionally, but not constantly, and keep the heat steady. After a few minutes, you'll notice the okra looks cleaner, less glossy, more like a sautéed vegetable and less like something that might thicken your stew in a way you didn't ask for. This is the trick. It's not a gimmick. It's just patience and the right order of steps. If you're enjoying how straightforward this is, take a second to like the video, it helps more people find real Brazilian recipes without complications. And tell me, how do you usually handle okra where you live? Do you love it, avoid it, or are you still deciding? Now the best part, we bring the chicken back to the center of the story. All those browned bits in the pan, the seasoned juices, the warmth of garlic and onion, they're waiting. In a moment, we'll start building the simmer, and that's where frango com quiabo turns into the comforting Minas Gerais dish people remember. Stay with me, because this next step is where everything comes together. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is exactly the kind of simple, traditional Brazilian cooking we make here. Now that the chicken is already sealed and looking golden with that warm annatto color, we don't rush it. I lower the heat a touch and scrape the bottom of the pot with a wooden spoon, because that brown layer stuck down there is pure flavor. When it loosens, it turns into a reddish, savory glaze that clings to the chicken. I add a splash of water just to help it along, and suddenly the kitchen smells like Sunday lunch at someone's house in the countryside, the kind of aroma that makes people wander in and ask, "Is it almost ready?" I cover the pot halfway, let it simmer, and keep an eye on the broth level. This isn't a soup, but it needs enough liquid to cook the chicken gently until it's tender and juicy. Every few minutes, I turn the pieces so they cook evenly, and I check the seasoning with a careful taste. If it needs it, just a little more salt, a pinch more black pepper. Nothing complicated, just adjusting so the base tastes full and clean. While that's happening, let's talk about the okra we cooked separately. It should be bright green, lightly brown in spots, and most importantly, not slippery. If you've ever been put off by okra because of the texture, this step is the difference between "I'm not sure about this" and "why didn't I make this sooner?" I keep it nearby, ready to join the pot at the right moment. When the chicken is almost done, that's when the okra goes in. Not too early, because we don't want it to overcook and fall apart. I slide it into the pot, fold everything together gently, and the stew instantly looks like Minas Gerais in a pan, rustic, simple, and generous. The okra absorbs the seasoned broth, the chicken releases more flavor, and the whole thing starts to thicken just enough to coat a spoon. If you're enjoying how straightforward this is, take a second to like the video, because it helps a lot. And tell me honestly, do you cook with okra, or is it one of those ingredients you've been curious about but never really trusted? In the next part, we'll finish the simmer, check the final texture, and get it ready to serve in the most comforting way. And now, after that gentle simmer, you can see it, the sauce slightly thickened, the chicken tender enough to give in with the fork, and the okra sitting there the way we want it to sit, present, bright, and silky, without turning the whole pot into a stringy mess. This is the moment where the kitchen smells like Sunday lunch. Warm garlic, soft onion, that subtle annatto color that makes everything look more inviting, and the chicken fat that carries the seasoning into every corner of the pan. I like to turn off the heat and let it rest for just a minute. Not because it's fancy, but because it helps everything settle. Then I take a spoon, bring a little broth up from the bottom, and pour it over the top, just to gloss the pieces. If you listen closely, the pot is quiet now, no aggressive bubbling, just that calm, finished sound of a dish that's ready. When I serve, I keep it simple and Minas style, a generous ladle of chicken, a few pieces of okra, and enough of that golden sauce to soak into whatever you're eating it with. You can almost feel the comfort before the first bite. The chicken is savory and deeply seasoned, the okra is tender with a clean flavor, and together they make that classic balance, hearty without being heavy. It's the kind of meal that fills you up and still leaves the day feeling light. Go ahead and taste and adjust only if you need it, maybe a touch more salt, maybe a little black pepper right at the end. Then sit with it for a second. This is Brazilian home cooking at its best, straightforward steps, good ingredients, and patience in the right moments. If this recipe helped you or made you hungry, leave a like so I know to bring more traditional dishes like this. And tell me in the comments, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil, its food, its regions, its traditions, anything? If you're enjoying this journey through Brazilian flavors, subscribe and come cook with me again, because there's a lot more from Minas and beyond waiting in the next video.